Alright, so 5 videos into what I knew at the beginning of everything was going to be a 14 video series, and I've done pretty much jack all in the way of furthering the narrative, or trying to escape, or doing anything to show my slow descent into madness. So, round about video 60, I kind of stopped and went, crap! This is going nowhere, and I really need to have it not go nowhere. Add to that, people complaining about it going nowhere, and me realizing that, we're not doing anything. And it's really important that I do something. So, video 60, I actually started what was the beginning of my proper mental breakdown. Now, I know I should have spread this out a little longer, I should have maybe not been overt with it, but I do like the idea of doing it this way in theory, and what I did was I actually worked my way through the 5 stages of grief. I dedicated a video to each of the 5 stages, which means video 1 is denial. So I spent all of video 60 doing denial. Now, in this regard, I will actually say that I know my acting wasn't perfect in this regard, but I think the bigger problem was the lack of script writing. And that's simply because a lot of the time I didn't know what to say or what to do. I kind of just sat down for a video and said, alright, this video I'm doing denial. Go! And I kind of improv'd my way through that mental state for a video. I'm actually really happy that, video 60 was only 7 minutes long, because I don't think I could have done denial for much longer than that. Now, this was intended to be the beginning of my descent into madness, and starting with something like denial, I think the biggest fault in this is I didn't really have a good reason to be in denial, because, as I mentioned before, I really didn't do much in the way of trying to escape, so I wouldn't be in denial that I couldn't get out and that this would never end when I kinda never tried. And I think leading into this whole mental issue, that's where the first 5 videos really failed hard, is that I did nothing to set up this mental breakdown. At the very end of the video, though, most people interpreted my jumping off the ledge as an attempt at suicide, jumping down to the land below. But I actually knew there was water down there, and if you look, you can see me steer towards the water. I apparently just did a very bad job of portraying it, but that was supposed to be a really panicked attempt at escape, not suicide. Video 61, now, doing the Spider Queen mod. This was then the second stage, Anger. I will add that, you technically don't always follow the 5 stages of grief in a specific order. I went in kind of the standard order, but you don't necessarily have to go through them in that order. So when I say the second stage, that's not necessarily because first comes from or because second comes after first. Now, to be honest, I think I got being frustrated and ticked off pretty good in this video. It's kind of uncomfortable to watch. When I went to first person there to look in the water, though, that was intended as being looking at my reflection in the water. I could have done that better, though, maybe add some effect over it or something so you could see it. Getting the Spider Queen mod up and running, though, was not a simple thing. I actually did a whole looking into how mods worked and everything, because the current version of the Spider Queen mod actually had a whole lot involved in it, including the one thing I really wanted to show off, a boss fight against a rival Spider Queen.
Spider bait. Hey,
However, there were just a few key files that were missing in the distribution, which essentially left you unable to fight. I spent a very long time trying and learning how to mod and learning how to make mods and learning how this mod worked to try to find a way to enable it, but I didn't have any luck. Now, normally, the Spider Queen mod actually shows a specific character for you to play as, the Spider Queen. It does not take your own skin and put anything over top of anything. So to get my own character, to get my own skin on top of the Spider Queen texture, or on the Spider Queen texture here, I looked into the Spider Queen files, and I found the file that held the Spider Queen's texture, and modified that myself so it looked like Curlynaka. Now, I've mentioned that there were 2 changes in my appearance throughout the course of this series. The first was very simple, and that was just me tying my hair up into kind of a ponytail. Originally, because Curly Brace has long hair, my character had long hair, and it was a couple of the fan arts actually displayed me with a ponytail, and I really liked that, so I went back and altered my own sprite to do that. It's kind of hard to see it, though, but I actually spent all of Season 2 and a fair portion of Season 1 with a ponytail. The next change to my appearance actually came here at the end of the Spider Queen mod, or actually in 2 videos' time. Just as before, though, I think I did a fairly decent job with anger, personally, but I didn't have a script or anything really to go by. I pretty much started recording and said, "You're angry, go!" As always, though, I did have everything planned out. I knew where I was going to go, what I was going to do, and how I was going to show everything off. And especially with some of the later emotions, it would have helped a lot had I written a little more of a script. Something else that I actually started to do here in the Spider Queen mod was something that was really subtle in the end. And I don't especially know if anybody picked up on it, but I knew more and more about the mods that I was getting put into and how to interact with them without being told how. Like, it makes no sense that I would know something about what's going on. It would make no sense that I knew how to do certain things. And yet I did. This started in the Spider Queen mod, and it really got more and more exaggerated as it went on. Right at the very end of fighting this little pumpkin flying around dude, I actually got hit a couple times, and I wasn't sure what by. I saw these little black things flying by. As it turns out, that was just my little spider friends. But I was thinking that was one of the little Octorok-like octopuses that is also in this mod. I wanted to show them off, but I never really ran into one, so I never had the chance. I ended up cropping it out, though, because it was really just a couple of minutes of me going, "I think there's something around here, but I can't find it," and it ended up just being like friggin' spiders. Seeing the Yuki-onna at the end of the video wasn't actually intended to have any serious meaning. Mostly it was that she was just supposed to look very at peace, and it kind of calmed me down from my rage before I got whisked away. That was mostly the main reason to that. There wasn't a big narrative reason for it. It was intended mostly just to lead into the next mod a little bit. And speaking of the next mod, this next one is the next stage of grief then, which was bargaining. So I spent pretty much the whole video bargaining. And I think this is where I started to get a lot of people complaining
What did I do wrong this time?
about what I was doing and not liking what I was doing.
Tell me.
And some of this can be chalked up to me not presenting it correctly. Some of this can be chalked up to me not building up to it correctly and making it clear what's going on. And at the same time, some of it can be chalked up to that this is not the series that a lot of people wanted. A lot of people wanted something a little more physical. They wanted a good guy and a bad guy, and me to go fight the bad guy and to win. They weren't interested in something a little more emotional. And as such, we come here, and really just everyone says, why are you just sucking up to him all this time? It doesn't... It's like, I just want to see you man up and keep going, and that's not what I was shooting for. I was shooting for an eventual mental breakdown. That this video in particular, does suffer a lot from the lack of any kind of real script. Because, as with all of the other videos, I just sat down and said, bargaining, go! And of course, after about a minute and a half, I was kind of out of things to say. So I started repeating myself, I started generally not saying anything terribly interesting, and I can't even comment on how well I acted it, because since I didn't really have any script or anything, I was stuck just doing improv, and I can say my improv was terrible. I did keep the Spider Queen mod throughout this video, though. Specifically, so I would still appear as the Spider Queen. And I did that mostly to just have even a little bit more impact on my character. To have a little more, not everything is right. You're not going to just get whisked away to another area and something terrible that happened previously doesn't matter anymore. The whole idea of everything was to break me. Really.
Do it for you? Will that make you happier?
That said, you do not, after you complete one of these, you do not fall down into the next one. You actually fall down and die. And then you respawn back up top. So I just had to take this opportunity to have the sign maker flash me right back up there. That said, I also did fail once in this entire map. It was a silly mistake on my own part, where I actually stopped with plenty of time to finish, but instead thought I was done. Was just kind of standing there going, alright, I'm done, what are we going to do next? And then, when the sand fell down, it wasn't even, and whoops. Video 63, the emotion of the day, and the fourth one in line, is depression. And of course, I started out in the bargaining phase a little bit still, and the sign maker actually proved himself to be a little intelligent in that he could see that despite that I was trying to bargain and do things that would help him, I was still trying to fight everything that was going on. And so he tells me to stop fighting, and I immediately lose all enthusiasm and fall into the depression stage. Depression is another one that's actually very hard to do, and it would have served me well to have a better script. Not only is watching someone that's depressed not an entertaining thing to watch, but it's very difficult to come up with decent commentary. It's very difficult to come up with new commentary and not just say the same thing over and over and over again. And still, a lot of people complained about this video, pretty much just saying, why are you just whining the entire time? And once again, this goes down to the same issues as before. Some of this is me not portraying it correctly, some of this is me not leading up to it correctly and making it properly understood. And some of this is people that just aren't expecting the correct thing out of it. They're expecting something that's a lot more
Well, let's go
energetic
find you,
and stuff going on, and not something quite this
go see if we can
emotionally
do something.
driven.
Heaven knows I
I've
can't do
I've
anything
said
about
this many a time before, but this entire thing was a very big experiment. I was doing something that I've never done before. I was doing something that I've never really seen done before, and
Melon too.
I didn't know how many people would like it. I didn't know how many people would not like it.
All right, sugar puff.
And I think I've gotten some kind of conclusion in that regard. And now another thing that made this difficult is depression kind of means you don't want to do anything, or at least that kind of comes with the territory. And as such, it was hard to come up with a motivation to continue on and continue exploring everything and show off the mod when I was depressed
There you are.
and really shouldn't have any enthusiasm towards doing it in the first
For a minute
place.
there.
Now, I meant to point this out
suppose
the
you two
very
wouldn't
first
wanna
time that I opened my inventory and actually
Go
saw
in with one of
myself,
these queens,
but
or
I
maybe
actually
a-
forgot to until nearly the end of showing off the mod. But another thing that was then carried over from the previous mod, and this is the third and final, or I should say the second change to my appearance, the third appearance, is that I now am using the little boob mod that I came up with before, and I've actually changed my face, so I now have, I retain the blue lips and the blush from the Spider Queen mod, and the boob actually comes also from the Spider Queen mod. So this is kind of a residual change that happened to me due to the Spider Queen mod that never really went away. I think a good couple people missed that one as well, thinking that this was just something new that I added in for not the sake of it, but it was still retained from the previous mod. And just never really went away. Video 64. This is the final stage of overcoming grief, acceptance. Now, I did refer to this map as Aquila, I don't know how to pronounce it, and a lot of people kind of got on me saying, no, that's not what this map is called. And to anybody who doesn't think that's what this map is called, actually, like, pay attention. Check the link in the video description and stuff. The video description actually takes you to the page where Fire UK built this map. And when they built this map, they showed in that video that this map was called Aquila or Aquila or whatever. Admittedly, I did not know this extra little bit was here. And this extra little bit that I started the video on may have been why people thought it was part of someone else's thing. Maybe someone else added this on and Fire UK used that map to distribute. I was actually looking around for a place to start. I was thinking of starting just out in the water, maybe on a little boat, and then swim right up to the actual main city. But while I was buzzing around, I actually found this rather large path going out and away, and I tracked it backwards all the way out to this little area, and I figured, well, if I'm going to show off a map, I should show off the entire map. So I started out here. Now, being acceptance, I did actually have a specific point that I wanted to accept it. You can't really make a video out of acceptance. That's kind of a moment thing. So I did get to spend the first half of the video still in the depression state, and I think that was probably the weakest part of the video, because, as usual, depression really isn't something that's interesting to watch, and it's not something that's easy to come up with interesting commentary for. Something else I can mention is I started using different texture packs just a few videos into Fate's Grasp, and that actually has a narrative reason, and it is not the sign maker's fault, or at least not directly. The whole idea of Fate's Grasp, as I've mentioned before, was to get me to better understand how everything worked, to get me to better understand reality and reach this higher level of thinking. And I did a few things throughout Fate's Grasp that actually showed a better understanding as time went on, albeit subtly. This was things like simply understanding things about the world that I shouldn't, which I've mentioned before. But this also comes in the form of the texture packs. You see, the texture packs are not something that was done by the sign maker. The texture packs are actually something that only I see. It is my perception of reality changing. Now, I did intentionally save the full breakdown for the moment in the church, but I actually started walking up to it. You can hear my voice cracking and me getting panicky and almost crying. And I was kind of doing this intentionally. I was kind of doing it because I was simply running out of things to say in the depression phase. But also because I wanted the build-up to make sense. I didn't want to just be depression and then spontaneously complete breakdown.
Why is this happening?
It also helped me kind of get in the mood. The scene in the church was a really big scene. It kind of brought the whole breakdown to a close. Everything that I was building towards in Fate's Grasp up until this point was leading up to that moment. And I wanted it to feel as real as it possibly could.
Go home.
And I think I did a pretty good job of that. Even then, though, there were still a few people commenting that it didn't feel like it was done very well. It didn't feel like I was really crying or anything. They were just kind of wondering what was going on, and it took them a while, and oh, I guess he's crying, okay, and I'll tell something to everyone. In that scene in the church, I had worked myself up so hard that I was actually crying. That was not an act, that was not me acting. I was actually crying. So if anyone doesn't think that seemed like someone who's actually crying, then I guess someone who's actually crying doesn't sound like they're actually crying. That was the breakdown moment, though. That was when I snapped and my descent into insanity began. I spent the entire rest of the video kind of bouncing around in a goofy, kind of broken way. And I only tried to push that harder in the next couple of videos. That said, the breakdown itself was actually scripted to a degree. It wasn't completely scripted, but I had a few talking points that I knew I wanted to hit when it happened. And a lot of it around that was a little more improv. But I guess you could say it was semi-scripted in that regard.
What have I done?
Breakdown aside, on this map, there are a couple things that I had fully intended to show off, looking at the entire map, and seeing as this went on for a long time anyway, I'm kind of glad I didn't. The first was a rather large building where a boat was being built. I skipped by this one knowing that the video was going on too long. The second one was actually a small little residential area, I guess you could say. I think it was more of a servant's quarters that was not quite outside the castle, but not quite inside the castle. I wanted to show that one off. This one I simply forgot to, though. Video 65. By this point, I've kind of gone off the deep end, and this is showing how quickly I'm going off the deep end. The last few videos actually show more and more mods and texture packs per video. Sadly, when I first started out showing the Plains mod Flans mod, as it were, that actually was not compatible with the texture pack that I had scheduled to show off at this point. So very briefly, I had to run around in vanilla textures, and I was really unhappy with that, but I guess you have to do what you have to do. To add to that, also, now that I've kind of gone off the deep end, we've reached the third part of Fate's Grasp, which is essentially my very quick descent into more and more being off my nut. In doing this, though, I did actually use a different music than I did before. The music that you heard as the intro was actually written by Wilhelm II, someone who watches these very videos, and made that music for me, and I think that's friggin' awesome.
Now I have constructed an airplane.
I think once I got to this segment of the series, this is when I did push just a little bit harder, that I kind of knew what I was doing when I shouldn't know what I was doing. Like, I went straight in and built this plane, and I shouldn't have known how to make this plane, or that I needed to put fuel in it, or how to put fuel in it, or anything. I just did it. Oh, and the title for these final 3 videos that I show off are actually all ideas that I had for the subtitle, for the title of this season. I ended up using Fate's Grasp, but I debated using the several other names that I used in the end. That being Descent, Spiral, and Wake Up. Descent and Spiral, though they make perfect sense in context, at quick glance they don't make sense. But it's the idea of a descent into madness, a downward spiral, and the overall flow of the final arc. Wake Up, then, was more showing what I was attempting to do through the entire series, in that waking up to the higher level of reality. But I figured that was kind of giving away the end just a little bit too much to be the title of the season. Also, when I crashed the plane into the water and the water went bouncing, I discovered that purely by accident, and as soon as I did it, I knew, well, I get to do that in the video.
I don't know too much about
I also ended finding the end. Some people weren't sure how I knew it was the end. That was Endstone that was on the ground. Though it was under a different texture pack, but I suppose that could also go towards me knowing something that maybe I shouldn't know. Once again, though, this didn't really have any terrible connection to the narrative as a whole. I just thought it was kind of a neat place to end. The end really doesn't have much importance to the overall series and the narrative, aside from that that's the place where our friend lost his respect for me. I did do a lot of flying around in this mod, though, and just looking for the different biomes. I wanted to show off a lot of the different ones, such as the mushroom biome, the end, the nether, and I was lucky enough, after about an hour of searching, to find all of them within pretty good proximity of each other. Video 66. Once again, I simply know I have the Longfall boots, and I immediately know how to use them. I know what the portal gun is, I know how to use it, I know how to use it to solve this dilemma. This is not a map that you can download anywhere, though. I constructed this map specifically so I could try to show off a few aspects of the portal gun. And then going into the Dragon mod, the only real point of note about this one is I really wanted him to attack and kill that sheep at one point, and he was really not wanting to do it. I do take off running, though, and this was intended to be that I had long since forgotten everything that was going on. I'd lost sense and track of everything. And really, the only thing I remembered in the end is that I was running.
Would you like to fight the sheep?
I didn't even remember why, just that I was.
So many sheep.
And that is, of course, the running from the sign maker, the trying to get
Hey,
free.
you, how about being,
Once
I
again,
don't
this
know,
would have helped out a lot if earlier
aggressive.
on I'd
Go
put
get 'em.
a lot more effort into trying to run and get
get 'em.
away.
Go get him.
I do have a compass out though, and it actually didn't even occur to me that the
There's a
compass
sheep
could be
right there.
pointing
Go get
somewhere,
'em.
but it's
Go get 'em.
not.
Go get 'em.
It's a
Go get 'em.
compass.
Go get
It's
'em. Go get 'em.
pointing towards the spawn point.
Shape.
It's not anything normal, and had I been paying
Place you don't like
attention
fighting.
when I got off the dragon and
Maybe
took
you don't
off
like
running, I would have
know what? We're
started
alright with
running directly
alright with
towards where the compass is
We're all right
pointing.
with you not fighting. I'm all right.
But it didn't
Come on,
even
come on,
occur
come
to
on,
me
come on, come on.
that the
Yeah, there
compass
we go.
was
We can make-
actually
we can make it
functioning
now.
and pointing somewhere, and that could be construed
I
as
don't have
being
all day,
important.
Dragon.
A
I don't
missed
have all day.
opportunity,
I
I
don't have all
guess.
day. I don't have all day. I have places to go.
I was
have
told
things
in
to
the
do.
end of this that I did come off more as hyper than crazy, and though I suppose that is
I have things to
true,
do.
I wasn't really sure how to
be off,
convey
my dragon friend.
crazy
Let's be
in a
off.
decent way.
be off.
I think what I did worked
we go.
pretty well for what I was
Away.
going for. It
I don't know
wasn't
where we're
really
going. I don't know,
crazy
but
because
have to
I
go. have to
still
go. I can't
needed
be here. I can't be
some
here.
kind of cohesion. I couldn't just be bouncing off the walls.
I need to see things.
Though I
need to
suppose the
experience
idea
the
wasn't
world. I need to
necessarily to go
experience everything that's
crazy,
going
but that
on.
I was
Everything at all. I need to
broken,
experience it all.
which is what I
All
was
of it.
going for.
Ah, I need to go. I need
This
to
is
go.
also the video at the
No.
end where I
Oh,
do
no,
the
no, no,
large
no,
maniacal
no,
laugh
no.
at the end, and
Sorry,
admittedly
I need to
that
go.
wasn't
I
a
need to go.
terribly
I can't be here.
great
I need to go.
laugh. I
need
can
to
do
go. I
better
need to
than
run.
that.
I need to run.
But then people also say that they could hear
Gotta keep
a
running, gotta keep
cat
running.
meow
You're
in
new, I've
the
never seen
end.
you before.
And
Friend, or are you a
once
foe? I
again,
don't
this
know.
is where
Why do
I
you keep
just
running, though?
say you guys are
Why do
inhuman
I need to keep running?
and strange and weird, and you need to
All of
stop.
you, I've never seen any of you before.
To be honest,
You're all
I couldn't
special.
hear
I've
it.
seen you.
I
What's going on?
turned
What's
my
going
own
on?
volume up as high as possible. I looked at the raw footage, and
Gotta keep running. Gotta keep running.
I got a squeak at the end. I mean, as far as I could tell, that could have been my chair squeaking.
Keep running.
So how everyone heard it
Always need to
and
keep running,
immediately
need to keep
called it
running,
a
need to keep
cat
running, need to keep
is
running,
beyond
need to
me.
keep running. Need to keep running. Need to keep running. Need to keep running.